Break out session. I'm Steve Smith. I'm also a Green Amendment advocate. So we have a lot to say in little time. So I will not introduce the panel, our illustrious panel, but I just wanted to let you know all of these people are helping to make New Mexico a better place for us all.
Hi everyone, I'm Representative Joanne Ferrary and I'm from Las Cruces, House District 37. Okay, so thank you for being here. We are going to be talking about the Green Amendment. And we just want everyone to know that the Green Amendment will add to the Bill of Rights, a section of our Constitution, a constitutional right to a clean and healthy environment. And it will establish a clear obligation on New Mexico government officials to protect the state's natural resources for the benefit of both present and future generations. And by placing environmental rights in our Constitution's Bill of Rights, we are ensuring they are given the same legal and constitutional standing as other inalienable rights of fundamental importance to all New Mexicans. And we recognize the importance of protecting our speech rights, our religious freedoms, and our civil rights. And it is just as important to protect the rights of our people to clean water and air, a healthy climate, and environment. And having a Green Amendment will help ensure that existing environmental laws and regulations are implemented to their full potential. And it will provide a basis for advancing new needed protections. And when our existing laws aren't protecting us enough or don't exist for a particular issue, the Green Amendment can provide the protection communities need. It will also make clear that protecting our environment and it is the duty of all government officials, not just our legislature, but all levels of government, including the governor. And the amendment will not undermine economic development in our state. It will just make sure that economic, industry, and business growth has to protect our environment, and which in itself is essential to a healthy economy and is essential for the health, safety, and happiness of all New Mexicans. So let us look at the language. And I thought I had a copy of it. Oh, that's where it is. Thank you. Let's look at the language of the amendment. And we have listened to communities across New Mexico as to what's important to them. And so that's why we're proud of the Green Amendment and how it has evolved over the past few years. So Section 2, the Green Amendment is Section 1, and it is proposed to amend Article 2 of the Constitution of New Mexico by adding a new section to read, A, the people of the state shall have a right to clean and healthy air, water, soil, and environments, healthy native flora, fauna, and ecosystems, and a safe climate, and to the preservation of the natural, cultural, scenic, and healthful qualities of the environment. The state shall protect these rights equitably for all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, tribal affiliation, gender, socioeconomic, or geography. And B, the state, counties, and municipalities shall serve as trustee of the natural resources of New Mexico and shall conserve, protect, and maintain these resources for the benefit of all the people, including present and future generations. And C, the provisions of this section are self-executing. Monetary damages shall not be awarded for a violation of this section. This section is enforceable against the state, counties, and municipalities. Getting a constitutional amendment through the legislative process, even though we've been working on it for about 5 sessions, this takes time, just like other really important legislation. like getting early childhood education supported and expand the land grant permanent fund to cover more expenses for that. That took over 8 years. And so this is something that we are not giving up. We keep going and we keep improving, and we are so glad you're here to hear our other speakers talk about the different pieces and importance of this constitutional amendment. So I'd like to introduce Representative Roybal Caballero.
Thank you. So many of you know me, and oftentimes when I speak on very critical issues, I don't want to call it issue, this is just a life importance, I get the community organizer in me come out. So feel free to join me if I let out a chant or something along the way, but I just wanted to let you know, remind you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Representative Ferrary. Buenas tardes. Let me begin by stating loud and clear, let the people speak on the Green Amendment. For 6 years, the people of New Mexico have been sending a clear message. We want our right to a healthy environment written into our Constitution. Ya basta, it's time. This is not hearsay, and it's not just a feel-good talk. It is the will of the people. Why then so much resistance? Fossil fuel interests have been exploiting loopholes in our laws, pouring money into campaigns for fossil fuel candidates, and making sure our policies favor extraction over the well-being of our communities. In other words, they prioritize profits over damaging our children's health, our rivers, and our lands. A green amendment is the people's solution. Without it, our agencies lack the legal guardrails to stop harmful practices. Without it, we watch our children's health decline. Without it, wildfires burn across the state. And without it, flash floods sweep through rural areas, and communities that once thrived slide into decline. Here's what's at stake. New Mexico is the second largest producer of crude oil in the country, behind only Texas. In 2024, we produced more than 2 million barrels a day, nearly double our output from 2019. That is close to 15% of total US production. The oil and gas industry accounts for just over 4% of our GDP, but a staggering 20% of our general fund revenue, which will rise to 23% in the next fiscal year. Families in the San Juan Basin who live near oil and gas wells are paying the price. Many of our Navajo children attend one of 74 schools and preschools that are within 1 mile of an active well. That affects nearly 29,500 students. Think about it. A June 2025 Associated Press article covering methane emissions in Counselor, New Mexico, noted staggering high rates of asthma and low academic performance amongst children. They state, and I quote, "Research has found student learning is directly harmed by air pollution from fossil fuels, even when socio-economic factors are taken into account," end quote. Shouldn't we be worried? Or do we dismiss the facts and perpetuate the oil and gas industry's responses that they state that without them, the New Mexico economy will tank? Well, how about this? Without healthy children and a healthy workforce, profits will tank, and there's no more oil and gas industry. How about that? But here's the heart of it. A massive majority of New Mexicans, over 80% across party lines, agree that the right to clean air, clean water, healthy soil, and a healthy environment should be protected. This is not fringe thinking, it is mainstream. And by the way, the Green Amendment is already part of the New Mexico Democratic Party platform. It passed in 2020. And still, our legislature acts as if the people do not matter. That tells us everything. That it is not about the voters. It is about the lobbyists who protect their cash cows at any cost. We deserve a fair hearing, not one where the rules are changed midstream by a leader with a conflict of interest recusing himself, but somehow still holds the gavel. Let the people speak. Let them decide whether they prefer drinkable water for themselves and future generations, or continue the culture of lining the pockets of a small elite. I ask for three things. First, a fair hearing free from conflicts of interest. Second, to advance the Green Amendment so it appears on the ballot for the voters. Third, to allow New Mexicans to decide whether we will protect constitutional environmental rights or continue on a path of unchecked extraction. Because at the end of the day, our collective rights to clean air, water, soil, and environment must come before the profits of a few. That is not just good policy. That is justice. And as my grandmother would say, sin agua limpia, no hay vida bonita. Gracias. Keep that in mind. We must keep the fire going. The legislature must respond. We will. It takes time, but as we're gathering more and more forces behind us, the day will come soon. Thank you so very much to all of you.
Thank you. So when people tell you in the Green Amendment, oh, we can't do that, that's gonna stop us from doing this, there's gonna be lawsuits, they need to show that. And I still haven't seen it. I still have not seen it. So please, I would ask that you do the same. But once again, we need your help. This has to be community driven. You have a great team here. We're gonna fight for it. We have other allies in the Senate and in the House as well. But we're gonna need your voice. And I think this is perfect timing with what's going on. I know we're going in a 30-day session, but with all the attacks that are happening from DC and around this country, we need this more than ever. So I will just leave it there and end with, we talk about costs all the time, and we never talk about the cost to our environment and what we're currently doing. We never talk about the cost of cleaning up the water. The Land Commissioner talked about it earlier, of plugging these wells. We can no longer allow these extractive industries to come in, exploit our communities, extract, and when they don't see a profit, claim bankruptcy and just leave us to clean it up. We can't allow that. And so I want to see, like many others here, I want to see protections. I want to be where we're holding people to a standard. And look, this doesn't shut down oil and gas, but it does hold them accountable. And I think that's a good start. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jantz. I'm the legal director at the New Mexico Environmental Law Center. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Law Center, we're one of the few nonprofit legal organizations in the country that focuses primarily on environmental justice issues, and we're the only one in New Mexico. So I've been asked to share my thoughts on three things today. First, the differences between the current constitutional provision regarding pollution control that the state constitution already has and the Green Amendment. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Atencio case, Atencio v. New Mexico, which is a Court of Appeals case that came down a few months ago that considers the pollution control clause of the state constitution and made some rulings about that. And then I also want to talk about how the Green Amendment advances environmental justice. So we've got the language of the Green Amendment here. There is currently in the New Mexico Constitution, Article 20, Section 21, a provision that allows for pollution control. It's a two-sentence provision in the miscellaneous provisions part of the Constitution. The first sentence declares that a beautiful and healthful environment is to be fundamental importance to the public interest, health, safety, and welfare. The second sentence vests that power to control pollution within the state legislature, quote unquote, consistent with the use and development of natural resources for the maximum benefit of the people. So the things that I see as important about the current constitutional provision are not what's really in it, but it's not what's missing from it. And by the language of this constitutional provision, there's no private right of action. So in other words, there's no individual right to a clean environment. It's a broad policy declaration with the control of pollution specifically vested within the state legislature. So, in other words, passing laws, statutes is the way that that constitutional provision is actualized. You see, in the Green Amendment, though, it specifically grants the right to clean and healthy soil, air, water to the people of New Mexico. And that is important because that means there is an individual right to a clean environment. That means that this environmental right is on par with other civil rights that we're more familiar with, like the right to free expression, the right to a free press, freedom of association, right to carry a gun, due process, habeas corpus, all the civil rights that we're more familiar with. The Green Amendment makes that right to a safe environment on par with those civil rights. And so when the government infringes on that right, just as is the case with every other civil rights, the individual can sue the government for vindication of their environmental rights under the Green Amendment. The Green Amendment also provides that the government act as a trustee for the environment. And that's important because we'll see in the Atencio case in a minute that kind of issue came up. This is a standard by which courts can judge whether or not a governmental action is violating the Green Amendment or not. So it provides a standard of under which a judge or court can decide whether or not the government is infringing on the right to a clean environment. There's a large body of jurisprudence about the responsibilities and duties of a trustee, as well as a uniform trust code in the New Mexico statutes that could help guide a court as well in terms of this. So why is this important? Well, I think that the Atencio case gives a lot of context to why the Green Amendment could be really important for New Mexico. In the Atencio case, Atencio v. New Mexico, the plaintiffs in that case brought a lawsuit against the legislature and the executive branch for failure to provide adequate environmental protections from oil and gas production. They argued that the legislature, while it's enacted statutes for environmental protection regulating oil and gas, those statutes are not adequate. It also claimed that the legislature has underfunded the regulatory agencies responsible for regulating oil and gas, such that they can't properly do their job. These are all legitimate concerns, right? I think that there is a lot to be said for the weakness of the statutory regime, but that's what we have. But the Court of Appeals didn't agree with any of this. In interpreting the Pollution Control Clause, the Court of Appeals decided that the Pollution Controls Clause, PCC, doesn't provide any individual right to sue the government for inadequate environmental protection. It read the plain language of the Article 20, Section 21, the PCC, and it said it clearly delegated the authority to the legislature to balance economic, sociological, environmental, and socioeconomic concerns when protecting the environment. So what that means is essentially that the court read the constitutional provision that we have and said, you, the people, don't have any authority to come to us, the court, and vindicate your environmental rights. That power is vested solely within the legislature, in a sense. In addition, the court decided that the current pollution control clause in the New Mexico Constitution doesn't provide any standard by which a court can judge whether environmental protection is adequate. So in other words, the plain language of our current constitutional provision doesn't give any court any metric by which to measure whether a particular statute, a particular regulation, or a particular action by the government is environmentally protective. And so, the court decided that rather than intrude upon that balancing of economic, health, environmental issues that's reserved under the Constitution for the legislature and the executive branch through its regulatory agencies, the court wasn't in a position to intrude on those responsibilities, right? So it wasn't going to essentially appoint itself as a mini legislature to make those sort of balancing decisions. In sum, the Court of Appeals said that the plaintiffs in the Atencio case hasn't brought anything before it that it could decide. It had no power to decide the issues under the current constitutional provision that the plaintiffs raised. And I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with the Court of Appeals, but simply reporting on what the court decided. It's worth noting that the plaintiffs have asked the Supreme Court to review it. So far as I know, there hasn't been any decision from the Supreme Court about that. So the last thing I want to talk about is how the Green Amendment advances environmental justice. Environmental justice is the principle that benefits and burdens of environmental development and environmental burdens are distributed equitably throughout society, irrespective of race or ethnicity or socioeconomic status. The converse of the flip side of environmental justice is environmental racism, which is the proportionate environmental pollution burden on low-income communities of color. Right now, there's nothing in the New Mexico Constitution Pollution Control Clause that addresses that very important issue. The Green Amendment, on the other hand, actually has very specific language that says that the state has to protect the environment of all people in New Mexico equitably, irrespective of their race or their ethnicity or socioeconomic status, among other things. So, under a Green Amendment, if adopted, that would give communities of color, frontline fence lines communities, the opportunity to challenge any governmental decision that disproportionately impacts communities of color, and could be subject to judicial review. I think that's unique. It's the only proposed constitutional provision I know of that really addresses environmental justice head on. And having spent my career working with low-income communities and communities of color to address these disproportionate impacts, this could be significant for folks who are frontline, fence line. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and I look forward to any questions you might have.
Welcome. Out of my district, so I'm going to introduce myself a bit. I'm Senator Shannon Pinto. She Kiami na slen kitla chini bashishin ashtaja ta chini no shiche Filipino da shanela tahachi shawan. So my district is District 3. I am, which runs about half of Gallup all the way up to the Four Corners area. And currently, what we're seeing with our constituents, not just in my district. Some people think, oh, you have to have a mine in your district to take some of this on, or some other extractive industry within your district. No, our people are everywhere, and harm has been done. So currently, you'll see that we're trying to make sure that people are compensated for the harm done by these extractive industries. And, you know, I'm not at that age where I had worked in that area or participated in that aspect of creating or contributing to these industries. But what if there was a green amendment that already existed before those industries came in? Would we be dealing with this right now? And that's one of the things I try to keep in mind, because it is not just us here now that have to deal with this. It's going to be our future generations. And that is very critical, that we protect as much as we can. Because as currently too, we see that the states are really the ones having to uphold a lot of what is, you know, trying to get torn down in some sense, to get to a better, to make sure our people have a better quality of life. So that's essential. But we know that there's a bigger demand for these critical elements, these critical minerals. There's more demand for energy in our sectors out there nationally, globally. That's putting pressure for more extraction. But we just want responsibility. And before, was that considered? No, it wasn't. Therefore, we are where we are with some of our people that have these health issues that are not just themselves dealing with, but is being passed from generation to generation. And that is, you know, I don't think we did have the technology or the science. We couldn't foresee some of that. But the broadness of the Green Amendment, that's what is necessary. I know some people are, well, it's not narrow enough, it's not specific enough, but none of the rights are. It is left up to the courts and interpretation, because we do not, a lot of it is, we can't really predict what's going to happen in the future, but we know what's happened in the past historically, especially in my area. So that's why I support it. That's why I think it's important that we continue to fight for it, because these demands for these minerals, it's not going to go away. And it is, you know, you see the children and you think about, you know, the education system and all these hopes and everything we have for them as they move forward. But if they don't just have simply a place that is safe, that is healthy, an environment, what do we expect them to do? How do we expect them to have hope or have that dream to go on and live a full life? So that's, you know, one of the basic elements, and this is one of the basic foundations that we need to keep fighting for. So thank you, and glad to have to answer any questions.
In my language, I want to say in our Diné language, Yat Eh. My name is Joseph Hernandez, and I am proud to represent New Mexico House District 4 that I share with my senator, Senator Pinto. And we cover 9 Navajo chapter houses, the town of Kirtland, and the city of Farmington. I started off by greeting you in my language. To the Western thinking, you would take that as a welcoming, that I'm saying hello. To us as Navajo, to the people that go and collect herbs, to the medicine people that pray for all that is living. When we say Yat Eh, we are saying all that is beneath the sky is all good. That is what we are saying to you when we see you. It is all good. And when I first heard about the Green Amendment, it wasn't because of the advocacy from Maya or many others here that were here before me. It was because farmers from the San Juan River came to a community meeting, and it was those farmers that brought up the rights of nature. That is what caught my attention when people in my community brought this up on my radar. And it's that we must allow. We must consider what continues to be raised, and that is an environmental injustice, that the Green Amendment will bring that constitutional standing. It is in Northwest New Mexico. I don't need to educate anybody here about how we have been a sacrifice for generations. And I'm here with another community member, Mr. Gilbert Bedoni in the back, who has fought so long on the impacts of uranium, that has had generational impacts of uranium. And it's so critical that we allow for us to continue to have those tough conversations when when local government, state government, federal government wants to continue to build out in communities that have suffered the most. It is critical at a time right now when Lee Zeldin wants to take us back and reverse all of the policies that were theirs from the 60s, from all the movements that happened in the 70s and the 80s, and with just a swipe of a pen to be able to reverse all of that. In the state of New Mexico, it is critical that we allow for voters to make a decision to decide on the Green Amendment. That is why I'm here with my colleagues to urge the support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maya Rossum. I'm the founder of the Green Amendments for the Generations organization and movement, and I'm a proud member of the New Mexico Green Amendment Coalition. It's such an honor to be here with all of our legislative champions, to be here with Jantz from the New Mexico Environmental Law Center that has done such critical work for the state. I want to recognize Representative Tara Lujan, who's not up here but has been a champion of the Green Amendment from the inception. As well as recognize Senator Antoinette Cedillo Lopez, who was supposed to be here but fell ill, and so is just sending us positive energy from her sickbed. But my job here today is really to take on one of the big false arguments of opposition that we've been hearing from the Green Amendment. People suggest it's coming from the clean energy industry, but we know at its core it's really coming from the fossil fuel industry. I am here to make the case that the Green Amendment is a powerful, positive tool for addressing climate change, including by helping to advance good quality, clean energy solutions. So let's just look at the language, right? The language of the amendment is very clear. Amongst the rights of the people to be protected is the right to a safe climate. It's right there, very clear. But in that second provision of the amendment, as Representative Ferrary has said, and as Eric has talked about, there is a clear obligation on all government officials in the state to protect the state's natural resources and to protect them for both present and future generations. These are rights and entitlements that belong to the people of the state of New Mexico if a Green Amendment is passed. And these rights are truly enforceable, just like the other fundamental rights we hold dear can be enforced in court when they're infringed upon. The right to free speech, the right to freedom of religion, and more. The entitlement for future generations to clean water and clean air, a safe climate, and healthy environments, I want to be clear to you. This entitlement of future generations is not just pretty language. We have demonstrated in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where we have generational language in our Green Amendment, that this is a substantive, clear, and enforceable obligation of government officials. That when they are rendering decisions today, by virtue of this language in a Green Amendment, government officials are constitutionally bound to ensure in a meaningful, substantive way that they are in fact protecting the rights of future generations to a clean, safe, and healthy environment. Again, it's not pretty language. It's truly enforceable. As a result of the Bill of Rights placement of the language and this carefully crafted language that we put together, government officials in the state of New Mexico may not infringe on these rights. And they also may not empower other third parties to infringe on these rights. In addition, the obligation to protect natural resources is an affirmative, positive duty that government officials must carry out. So very clearly, when you put it all together, right, government clearly has to address climate change. They have to address climate change because it's a substantive right of the people. They have to address climate change because climate change has very direct implications for all of the natural resources that government becomes constitutionally bound to protect for both present and future generations. Because clean energy, right, is a critical pathway for ensuring a safe climate, for averting climate crisis, the New Mexico Green Amendment drives support for good quality clean energy projects. It drives support for good legislation, regulations, and decisions that support and advance good quality clean energy projects, and it will prevent government action that stymies clean energy progress. And we actually know this, one, because of the direct language as I presented to you, but we actually know this because we've demonstrated this in the courts. In the Held v. Montana case, where 16 youth took on government officials based on the Montana Green Amendment, it was because of the Green Amendment that it was recognized that the youth have a right to a safe climate and that government is constitutionally obliged to consider greenhouse gas emissions and the climate changing impacts of the decisions that government is about to make. And it is because of the Montana Green Amendment that a piece of state legislation that sought to prevent government officials from considering these issues was actually struck down as unconstitutional. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I and my organization used Pennsylvania's Green Amendment to take on fracking for fossil fuels and to prevent the exponential expansion of fossil fuels by, again, striking down a piece of state legislation that would have been incredible overreach and allowed for the exponential expansion of that industry. Part of the decision made very, very clear that the language required all government officials at every level of government to ensure that they were protecting the environmental rights of the people and the natural resources of the state. And by virtue of the Green Amendment, these rights of the people, these entitlements of the people, could not be waved away by a piece of state legislation. And right now in Pennsylvania, we have Pennsylvanians who are being impacted by climate change, relying on the Green Amendment in order to proactively lift up a piece of regulatory, a regulatory program that would be key to advancing good quality clean energy projects and is being attacked by the opposition. Now, in addition to these substantive rights and entitlements, the constitutional Green Amendment language, once put in place, actually also creates a procedural obligation, a procedural right of the people. It creates an obligation on government officials to thoroughly consider the environmental impacts, the environmental rights implications, the natural resource implications of the actions that they are proposing to take before they take that action. They have to do it in a clear and thorough way, and again, this is something we've proved in court. When we have this pre-action review in the context of a clean energy project, what we do is we create a really strong foundation for getting to yes when we have a good quality project. We also create a foundation for government officials to identify problems with clean energy projects that will result in serious avoidable ramifications that we want to avoid, and actually put in place requirements that will avert those environmental harms before they take place. And it actually creates the opportunity for government officials to have the knowledge to say no to bad projects, right? Before there's been an irretrievable commitment of resources or harm has been inflicted on the public. And so what all this means is when we get to court and we have a good informed decision around the clean energy project, if there's a challenge, including to a good quality clean energy project, there's a stronger defense to help allow that project to move forward to defeat that challenge. So because I just want to be clear though, we have to understand not all clean energy projects are alike. There are good quality clean energy projects, and there are clean energy projects where there are problems that need to be fixed before a project can be approved. And there are in fact some projects that aren't really clean energy, and they shouldn't be allowed to advance, right? It's in clean energy in name only. And the Green Amendment really gives us the knowledge and the foundation to make the right decision. And again, when we have a good project, to defend it in court. Clean energy projects are being attacked right now. They're being challenged, not attacked, they're being challenged right now in New Mexico and nationwide based on legal theories that have nothing to do with a Green Amendment, right? So when we have a Green Amendment in place, it actually, again, becomes a really important tool to get us to the right outcome, whether it's a yes, a no, or a modification. And I want to be clear, we have 3 states right now where we have Green Amendments. We have Green Amendment proposals in over 20 states, 3 states that already have a Green Amendment, Pennsylvania, Montana, and New York. And in these 3 Green Amendment states, we do not see Green Amendments being used in order to bread or stymie good quality clean energy projects. What we actually see is we see these Green Amendments being used to seek, secure, advocate for, right, the policies, the programs, and the decisions that will advance good quality clean energy. And I just want to bring you a couple quotes from Pennsylvania. These are leaders of clean energy companies talking specifically about the Pennsylvania Green Amendment and making clear these amendments are great for renewable energy and by no means are an impediment to doing business. So when it comes to climate change, when it comes to advancing good quality clean energy that will be good for the state of New Mexico, when it comes to protecting all New Mexico residents and their inalienable human right to a clean, safe, and healthy environment, including those of future generations yet to be born, all the way around, a Green Amendment is good. So I hope you'll consider joining our New Mexico Green Amendment movement.